Hi, I'm Brandon Menike, and you're listening to the Hoedown from Sparks Media. Today I'm joined by Hannah Haas and Rihanna Carlson, and in this show we'll be looking at factory farming versus family farming throughout the world. First off, let's take a look at the difference between the two, and let's start by talking about what a factory farm is. By definition, a factory farm is a system of rearing livestock using intensive methods by which poultry, pigs, or cattle are confined indoors under strictly controlled conditions. Factory farms are meant to make farming more efficient and to bring better prices for meat in grocery stores. Whereas, a family farm is a farm owned and operated by a family, and is usually handed down with each generation. The United States Department of Agriculture defines a small farm as having less than $250,000 in annual gross sales. Basically, a family farm usually runs their farms in a more traditional and old-school way, and they are not as big as corporate farms. Some of you may be wondering, why should we care about this? One reason why this topic sparked our interest is because factory farms are putting people out of jobs and even changing economies drastically. Another thing we want to look at is how these types of farms affect our environment and the safety of our food production. Ultimately, we are trying to figure out which type of farming is better for us. Changing economies.
The numbers are startling. According to the chairman of the House Agriculture Committee, over 12,000 U.S. farms went out of business in 2017. Net farm incomes have dropped 52% in the last 5 years. Bankruptcies are up 33% in the past 2 years.
And not long ago, two key universities informed us that 2/3 of the representative farms that they use to model economic conditions of the agriculture are currently marginal or poor financial condition.
Worse yet, uncertainty of crops and profits, coupled with the social isolation of farming, contributes to the highest suicide rate of any U.S. occupation.
When it comes to factory farming, there are lots of speculations about environmental impacts, economic impacts, and effectiveness, and then there's science. Choo-choo! You hear that? That's the hoedown train. Hoedown vs. Factory Farms is coming up after these short messages. Have you ever been sitting in your dorm room thinking about how hungry you are, but don't want to get the bland food from the MSC? Stop down at the Log Jam local bar and eatery, where we have all your food made fresh and live music on weekends. So come over to the Log Jam and join our bar family today.
Welcome back. This is Hannah, and before we start this show, we must give a warning. This topic does go into some graphic detail about the treatment of animals on both family and factory farms. While this is a sensitive topic and hard to cover, we are specifically using this information to strengthen the facts about both sides of the argument. Now, some may wonder, what exactly does it mean to be a factory or family farm, and why should we care about the difference? I mean, a farm is a farm, right? Wrong. There are some major differences between family and factory farms, and even if you haven't noticed, there's been a recent uprise of factory farms. Why are there two types of farming in the first place? Well, when farming first started, it was what we know now as family farms, where people owned their own farms and families worked on them to grow crops and raise cattle. As time continued, factory farms started to sprout and create a new type of farming. These two types of farms are completely different, and you might be wondering, what are the factors that determine which type of farming is more beneficial for our environment?
9 billion with a B farm animals are reportedly raised and killed for food in this country every year.
Recently, the widespread use of new farming technology and machines has been used to quickly manufacture products. While this technology has boosted the rate at which products have been produced, factory farming also negatively impacts the environment through improper waste management. There has been a lot of research conducted about the relationship between waste management and environmental impacts, such as impacts on our water supply.
The Environmental Protection Agency has talked about this on their website. They say when improperly stored or used, animal waste can pollute rivers and underground drinking water supplies. The EPA tells us that a single dairy cow produces about 120 pounds of wet manure every single day. That's a lot of waste in one day, and that's just one single animal.
Studies from sources range from actual farmers to environmentalists that argue that the use of manufacturing within farming has increased the amount of waste within our water. According to Yang Rong from the Department of Water Management at the Delft University of Technology in the Netherlands, the number of people affected by organic pollution in our rivers is projected to increase from 1.1 billion in 2000 to 2.5 billion in 2050, meaning certain farms can affect the quality of our rivers and water supply. Waste management performed by these farms has failed at ridding it of the animal excretion that is produced and not reused. This waste is then transferred into our waterways, therefore causing pollution within our environment and possibly being related to the spread of diseases. By 2050, the number of people affected by pollution will double, leaving almost 3 billion people sick. Factory farms are the leading cause of this pollution due to their lack of manpower needed to rid their farms of the animal waste being combined with our waterways. Now to hand it over to Rihanna.
Along with this, some farms also use different types of equipment and have different diets for their large stock of animals. Certain diets cause chemical secretions in the animal's manure. Then those harmful gases are emitted into the air, aiding what is known as the greenhouse gas effect. The demand for animal feed is met with intensive grassland management, bringing forth the need to coat the grass with artificial fertilizers and insecticides. These particles then end up as poisonous waste products inside the manure of the animals. When too much of these materials are emitted into the air with a small section of land due to overcrowding, this can have intensive and direct impacts on the general environment. Large amounts of greenhouse gases and ammonia are emitted into the air by farms, which can lead to the uprise of global warming. This is caused by the diet of the livestock and how the manure is managed. A way this can be helped is by giving the livestock healthy amounts of protein or the use of more straw in the housing of the animals and the management of crops by spreading manure during the coolest times of the day. Implementing these strategies will definitely lower the amount of nitrogen emitted into our environment, and in time will positively impact and reduce greenhouse gases and the amount of ammonia being emitted.
Right now, I would say our biggest concern in factory farming would be the overcrowding of our animals.
Right, so could you elaborate a little bit more on why that's such a bad thing?
Well, overcrowding isn't bad just for our animals' health. It is also bad for the environment as well, but since our organization, is mainly focused on our animals' rights, that is what we are most concerned about.
The overcrowding of animals ultimately does have a direct impact on the environment. When the buildup of chemicals and ammonia in the manure are all concentrated in a relatively small area of land, this impacts the general air for the animals themselves, along with the general environment as well. Due to this issue being improperly managed, the environment suffers the consequences of overcrowding.
Finally, we can see how the advances of new technology within the farming environment can help take the stress off of our farmers and produce products faster. A case study was conducted from 1980 to 2000 within the Philippines showing changes in rice production due to their newly invented harvesters. For example, a normal harvest of rice could take about 29 to 44 weeks and produces 2,900 kilograms within that time. After using the newly implemented technology, they were able to increase their harvest by an extra 300 kilograms and shorten the time period to about 22 to 40 weeks per harvest. The advances in our farming technology aids the growth of farming due to the increase in crop production. Within areas of food shortage, these new farms have extra crops to send to the towns that need this resource and can help fix that food shortage. They also are able to shorten the time it takes to produce crops, which allows farmers to produce more products before the end of season and meet their demands. As far as family farms go, they are also making efforts towards stronger advances in environmental control as well as safe food production. While family farms may not have the same production rates as factory farms, We can see that their approach is more environmentally healthy, and their products seem to be as well. The first thing we noticed through our research about family farms versus factory farms is the difference in their use of manure. There seems to be a major difference in the reuse and disposal of manure produced.
In the barns, it's collected in the gutters, and we got a machine that drags it through the barn and dumps it into a spreader. And then, like, once every couple days, we take it out into a field and dump it out there for fertilizer. And I guess our pastures, we don't let them graze too close to waterways in case manure would run off.
According to recent studies, most family farms will reuse about 92% of their animals' manure as a fertilizer for their crops. But according to another survey conducted in 2013 within Beijing, China, there is no effective way to control waste management of manure due to the lack of effective labor. Around 76% of manure is collected from factory farms and sent to composting. This overabundance of manure is being wasted due to the lack of effective labor. This then causes an abundance of waste which is polluting our air and waterways. Most of the time, the process of waste removal is handed over to our sewage treatments, which allow the waste to be recycled into our water. Most factory farms don't have an effective way of reducing or removing waste created from manure. It then ends up in our water or environment, damaging and tainting it. We gather that family farms actually do have a more effective waste removal process, which is reusing their manure to help fertilize crops. When it comes to home farms, it seems as though they care about reusing manure as a fertilizer rather than having it be thrown out and affecting our environment. Factory farm practices have a disproportionately negative impact on our environment due to the lack of waste management. Due to the amount of pollution caused by manure from our agricultural systems, we should be thinking about what can help reduce pollution. Now for a short break.
Do you happen to know any farmers who need some nutritious value for their animals? Let them know that Countryside Cooperative has them all set. Come by our feed mill and we will bring nutrition to your farm animals.
Welcome back, folks! Before our break, we mentioned the differences between waste management with factory and family farms. Along with our understanding, it seems as though family farms' waste management with manure is more beneficial to our environment. However, there is still some pollution. It is not as much compared to the pollution caused by factory farms. Now let me ask you this. Do you ever wonder about how your food is produced? Do you ever wonder about where it is better to buy your food? Next up, we're going to take a look more into depth on which type of farming is safer when it comes to food production. Now first off, where does our food come from? Why would we buy more expensive food from farmer markets when we can buy it much cheaper at Walmart? On this note, we will take a look at food production safety and how this can affect us. According to an article by Dr. Tim O'Brien in Canada, salmonella was found in 86% of turkey flocks at a CAFO or a factory farm. This can be due to the housing of the animals in certain farms. If they are overcrowded and animal excretion gets into their feed, then salmonella can be a result of this.
Along with the confined housing of animals, the poor ventilation of the housing can also result in diseases becoming airborne. This article also mentioned how outbreaks of virocytotoxin producing E. coli or VTEC were also found in England in 1994. There were 6 outbreaks which affected more than 130 people. We have also found some information on possible foodborne illnesses from crops in an article by Sasha C. Marine. According to Sasha, between the years of 1998 and 2008, 46% of foodborne illness outbreaks were found to be attributed from produce on farms. Outbreaks between 1997 and 2007 were linked back to a farm that produced tomatoes in Florida. Salmonella and Shiga toxin producing E. coli or STEC were found on certain crops grown. The living arrangements of animals on farms is important for the safety of food production. This makes us wonder, why aren't these risks of diseases thought of while housing the animals for farms? The risk of illness being passed from the animals to the consumer is something that can easily happen. Knowing how the different living conditions of the animals may affect our health is something that is looked over frequently.
However, we also need to be cautious about washing off any of our vegetables that we purchase. Knowing that farms may spread manure and use harmful pesticides on their crops is a good thing to keep in mind. Family farms may not be as efficient as factory farms, however, they do have more benefits when it comes to food production and even our health. Learning this helps us understand the safety of our food production and our health as well. Hopefully this is helpful to everyone to know what we may be consuming and where to shop for our meats and vegetables. On that note, let's go ahead and take a quick break. Up next, we will cover more of the economic side of farming.
Have you had a long day? Maybe you should feast your appetite at Taco Bell. Come enjoy our delicious burritos, tacos, and amazing sides to go with your meal. Come on by the Taco Bell. You will not be disappointed, and your toilet will hate us.
Welcome back to hoedown versus factory farming. Now, both types of farming have significantly different impacts on the environment, but what about our economy? Next, we'll take a look at the economic side of things. When looking at the actual costs and benefits of both factory and family farming, we can see a significant difference between the two. Factory farming has taken over a substantial amount of the economy. Evidence shows that the stocks within the farming industry are focused solely on factory farms due to their effectiveness and large influence on the farming industry. Studies from China in 2008 explain the significance factory farms have on the economy. One factory farm, the San Lu Dairy Corporation, held about 18% of the national dairy market shares. One single farm was in control of almost 1/4 of all stocks produced within the industry. You may be wondering why this is a problem. Well, there are a couple reasons for this. The first being that if stocks within that corporation continue to grow, then there could be the possibility of a monopoly being formed.
Another reason is that if something goes wrong with this major corporation, then a huge chunk of the market will crash and the economy will tank, which happened with the San Lu Dairy Corporation, but we'll get to that later on in the show. With this information, we can see how factory farms affect the economy with their effective rates of production. As stated earlier in our show, there have been case studies conducted with the Philippines to show how the new technological advances boost the production rates of products. This has greatly impacted the economy of farming because there are hundreds of places with food shortages. So if we're able to produce products faster, of course the government is going to invest more money into those industries. This then leads back to the topic stated earlier about a monopoly being created. If all investments are being put into the same corporation, this is majorly going to impact family farms, as they may not have enough income to purchase the new advancements. This in turn will allow major farming corporations to grow and overtake the stocks of smaller farms. Now for a short advertisement, we'll be right back with the hoedown.
Have you ever needed a tractor because it's the middle of farm season, but your children broke your last one? Well, join the Yeehaw Facebook Marketplace, where we sell new and used tractors and other types of farm equipment. Open year-round, and new products are being sold daily, and they go fast, so join today!
Welcome back. Now, why are family farms being put out of business? And are we better off with factory farms? Next up, we're going to take a look at the politics between factory farms versus family farms. One reason why this topic stuck out to us is because personal friends and family that we know own small family farms that are being put out of business due to corporate farming. According to the National Review, during the 1930s, there were about 6.3 million home farms in the U.S. This number has decreased to about 2.2 million farms, and there are fewer every day. Overall, we want to know if the uprise of factory farms will completely wipe out family farms. Over the last decade, over half of the family farms that were once thriving have shut down or been sold off to factory owners. These factories have since taken these farms to join part of their industrial monopoly. There are many factors to consider in the takeover of family farms by factory farms. The need to meet production demands is one of the main challenges that family farms have when against factory farms. Although this is a major setback, there are features of family farming that could sway people's opinion in that way. The environmental impacts that family farms have are much less harmful and actually more of a sustainable option. For starters, production rates between family farms and factory farms differ drastically. This causes many family farms to not be able to compete against the factory farms and their growing industries. According to farmaid.org, in 1985 there were over 300,000 family farms selling about 100 hogs a year, but recently, in 2007, less than 20% of those farms still made a profit from selling hogs. The reasoning for this is due to factory farms being able to sell upwards of 800 hogs per year and due to factory farms being able to save more on feed for their livestock. Again, according to farmaid.org, factory farms saved $8.5 billion from 1997 to 2005 on low-cost animal feed due to government subsidies on corn and soy. With these price drops in feed and abundance of livestock, factory farmers are able to gain more wealth and more control over the monopoly of farming. Low-costing feed, though, goes back to our earlier subject about the poor conditions of our animals. With these low-grade foods being given to our livestock, they aren't given their full diet, leaving them without crucial nutrition that would aid them in their healthy growth.
One other thing that contributes to this rapid growth of production rates is the new advances in technology being given to factory farms. Since these farms produce more wealth, they're able to buy newer machinery that allows them to produce crops and raise livestock faster. Along with the advances of new technology, these new machines also bring along higher stress levels to our farmers and the people working with them. According to a study conducted in New Zealand, 985 dairy farmers on factory and family farms were recruited for a study of their stress levels throughout one full year. Throughout one season of farming, the factory farmers tended to have more stress levels due to a couple of factors. One of these factors is the use of machinery. There was a constant level of stress with factory farmers due to the breakdown of their new machines. Both types of farming will generate some levels of stress because of the unpredictable weather, time pressures for a perfect plant and harvest, and the constant stress of economics and the ever-changing government policies. But machinery also brings an extra level of stress because farmers have to keep up to date with the newest technology to help improve effectiveness, along with keeping maintenance of their machines to reduce breakdown of them. So with all the stress coming from factory farms and their new machinery, is it even worth keeping them around when there's clearly some negative side effects to the mental health of farmers?
Obviously, though, our economy has become stronger since the introduction of factory farms, which ultimately boosts the government's involvement in allowing more factory farms to be built. But are these faster production rates and cheaper rates worth the negative byproducts created from the waste within these farms? Factory farms push family farms closer to the brink of extinction every day. 6.5% of family farms on average shut down every year due to factory farms and allow for more farms to be built, leading to more waste and pollution in our waterways. These negative effects on our environment and the fact that we as consumers are gaining illnesses from the products produced within factory farms every day makes us wonder, is this new renovation of factory farming aiding our development or hindering us from a healthier future? And that wraps up Hoedown versus Factory Farms. A huge thank you to our sponsors for this episode and also a thank you to the interviewees for this week's episode. We're the Hoedown gang and we'll see you next time. Yeah!